Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News Service.
And you know, Rabbi, we always have this emphasis on law enforcement throughout the Capital District. We have a lot of guests on. Well, we have probably one of the longest tenured district attorneys in the Capital District, Bob Carney, with us today, Schenectady County District Attorney. And welcome to the Jewish View.
My pleasure.
Very good. Look, Bob, you know, crime and punishment is probably, even in voters' minds and the people's minds, one of the biggest issues. Maybe the economy and the budget is, but, you know, everybody wants to feel safe. What would you say, since you're, Mark tells us that you're the longest, how many years is that anyway, before we even
I'm in my
start?
25th year.
25th year?
So
That's
first year of
incredible.
a 7th term.
That's incredible. But maybe as things gotten better, worse, stayed the same, or maybe a big question, you know, what kind of crimes? You know, we always hear about drugs. You know, what have you seen in your 25 years?
Well, Schenectady has had a tough go of it during a lot of that period, and I've been there for, unfortunately, some of the worst of the times. You know, I'll give you a statistic that puts in perspective better than anything else. In the 26 years preceding me, going back through 3 DAs, there were 2 people convicted of murder in that entire time period.
In 26 years?
Yes. In my 24 plus years, we just convicted our 125th person of the crime of murder.
And why is that then? Because it's not a matter of population.
Because they weren't convicting them for the 26
Well,
years.
there were some botched cases, but very small number or subset versus what we've had to deal with. And the reason was twofold, I believe. One was 1990 was when I took office. That's also when we got crack cocaine on our streets, and that's when the explosion of violence connected with drugs occurred. And you have to remember that GE decided to pull gas turbine out of Schenectady in 1986 or thereabouts, which when you pull 13,000 high-paying blue-collar jobs out of a community, the demographic effect of that, which started to really be felt 4 or 5 years later, was a serious problem.
And the poverty.
The poverty and our housing situation. Now, people say Giuliani drove the criminals out of New York because they feared the policing. I don't believe that's entirely true, but I know where it comes from. What happened was, because the city of New York did such a good job about policing and being smart about policing, what you had is this phenomenon in the outer boroughs, Brooklyn and the Bronx, where housing stock dramatically improved, and what were slums in the 70s now are $1 million brownstones.
So Bedford-Stuyvesant.
So the poor people tend to be in the projects. And that's all they could live, and they could afford to live. And a lot of them started looking at the upstate cities where the population was shrinking. So they went to places like Newburgh and Kingston and Poughkeepsie, then up the Hudson Valley to Albany, Schenectady, Troy, and Utica. And we had surplus housing because Schenectady had 100,000 people at its heyday. Now it's 66,000. It's actually growing now. But we had a housing stock that was built in the late 1800s, primarily the early 1900s, which, unlike the Victorian neighborhoods in Troy and Albany, were 2-family wooden frame housing built very densely together on the trolley lines. And when that housing tends to be neglected, it falls apart. Mm-hmm. So we have places in the city where block by block, where we have owner-occupied housing in one particular neighborhood, we don't have much crime problem. When we have non-owner-occupied housing, we tend to have people who come in with problems, and they bring their pathologies with them, and that has exacerbated our violent crime.
That's a very interesting analysis.
Yeah, I know. I never heard that. That's very interesting.
So the land bank, I was at this news conference where they would demolish a house, and because the land bank was able to build new homes on this block, and the attorney general came there. And
I think Mayor McCarthy is absolutely right to put as many resources as the city can put into housing, tearing down unsavable substandard housing, trying to encourage renters to become owners through creative financing, all very smart and all long-range good. Just like the downtown of the city of Schenectady, which has always been safe, despite the thinking of people, the perception, exactly. But the downtown is thriving because of the work of Proctor's and Philip Morris and Metroplex, smart investments, and that is coming back.
Yes.
And it's where the neighborhoods need the attention.
Right.
And you asked, I was listening to
So-
the taping earlier,
so
Brian's Kilcullen show.
Yeah, so Hamilton Hill,
I would
Va-
say Hamilton
Vail
Hill,
neighborhood.
Mount Pleasant, and Central State Street are the three neighborhoods with the highest crime problems.
now, you're the DA for the entire county.
Yes.
So what are the towns or villages that you would focus on that also has high crime?
Well, the towns in Schenectady County are quite healthy, you know,
Okay.
and we certainly, we have police departments in Rotterdam, Niskuna, Glenville, and in the village of Scotia has one, and we have a state police barracks in Princetown. Generally, the crime problems in those communities tend to be related to the city. If they border the city of Schenectady, those areas in Rotterdam that border on the city, they have a higher crime problem. They also have the problems that, you know, areas that have shopping districts or malls have, Rotterdam Square Mall, Mohawk Commons. Those generate police, you know, but you'll find that in any community.
Like Crossgates?
You'll find that type of associated shoplifting and that sort of thing. But really, the crime problem, I mean, 85% of the felonies that we deal with in the county come out of the city of Schenectady.
So when you look at what Albany is doing to throughout the county, combat crime, do you learn anything from that you could bring over to Schenectady, or is it just a totally different idea?
Yes,
you know,
we certainly can learn from that and have. Our crime trends in the city of Schenectady generally mirror those of the city of Albany. If Albany's having a bad time of it, Schenectady seems to be having a bad time. Interestingly, from our perspective, the last 2 years has seen a sort of a reversal of that. This year particularly, Schenectady has only had 4 shootings compared with 6 last year. Troy and Albany are having serious problems. I think Albany's had 30 shootings. I don't know how many Troy's had. Troy's had 8 homicides. We've had 1 in the city of Schenectady. So,
What do you attribute that to? Is there any kind of logical connection, or you know?
I
do
can't
people
say
try to
I
draw
can't say what's
conclusions?
happening in those communities that's inherently an issue. And the numbers at this size could change dramatically. You could have we could have a bad year next year, and so it's when you're looking at the crimes that occur in much greater numbers, you get a better sense of the crime problem in the community, like burglaries and assaults and that sort of thing. But in terms of, I know what we're doing that has worked, and some of those things the other communities are doing, some of them are unique to us. One thing that we've had is we've had an FBI-sponsored gang task force in the city of Schenectady that has focused on drug and violent gangs. And they had 2 that they took down, which were home-bred gangs in Schenectady. One was called the 4 Block, operated primarily in the Hamilton Hill area. And the other one was called the Uptown Gang, primarily in the Central State Street area. And I think they prosecuted federally some 70 or so people. I have an investigator from my office permanently assigned to that, and an assistant DA who's cross-designated as a federal prosecutor. She is working very closely with that. So we help to shape those things. And when you take that number of people, some of whom are involved in shootings and retaliatory shootings, quite often you tend to have a beneficial effect on suppressing crimes of violence. That's one thing we're doing. We're doing a lot of other things. You can't incarcerate yourself out of these problems. You can put away people that you know are dangerous and violent and are causing crimes, but you're also going to have people coming back. So we need to provide services for re-entering ex-offenders in the community, so we are actively involved in that. We have a program that Albany also has. Schenectady, Albany, and 2 precincts in New York were designated as pilot projects for something that a professor at Yale named Tracy Mears devised for Chicago. And it is about morally engaging parolees not to engage in gun violence. And it involves simply bringing them into a room in a neutral setting, talking all together and trying to give them the message that we're not picking on you. We hope you do well as a citizen, but in the event that you do pick up a gun or commit a crime with a gun, we're going to come down on you very hard because that crime is devastating to our community. And we've had it's more now, but as of the spring, I knew the numbers were 155 parolees that were given this message. and 8 of them had subsequently violated parole, but not one of them for a gun offense.
Well,
So, maybe that's had a
Just
beneficial
talking to
impact.
them, meaning
So-
it's interesting because the DA, you say, oh, harsh, put them in jail and prosecute. But in a little sense, to prevent crime, you have to be a little bit in the social works.
I
department.
think it is an emerging and very important role of the DA. I view that as a crime reduction strategy, and that should be part of my job too. And I know that other DAs feel the same way.
So I wanted to get on the idea of the judges. You have approval for what, 2 more judges or the,
One more city court judge and one more family court judge.
and is that going to be helpful to you to have?
Well, I think the family court judge is needed. They didn't consult with me on the city court job. I would have told them we do not need another judge in that court. What we need is a county court judge. We have 1 county court judge. We regularly have 1 or 2 additional visiting judges. We routinely get one from Fulton County, either Judge Hoy or Judge Giardino. Fulton County has 2 county court judges. They have a calendar of criminal cases that's 1/10 the size of ours. So we always have to borrow one from them. So it makes a lot more sense to me to say that's where the additional judgeship should be created.
So maybe in the future budgets or state budgets?
I
mean,
would
you're
hope the
advocating-
state takes a look at that. I think
But
what
aren't-
may happen is they may take one of the new city court judges and assign them up to county court, because the need is greater there.
Well, do you have, you're with the DA's Association?
I am.
You go to their lobby days? You're not
We
far.
don't have, we're not allowed to lobby, I mean, in the
Advocate?
sense, we're not lobby, we certainly as elected officials advocate for policy positions that we believe in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was president of the District Attorneys Association in 2000,
Okay.
so I'm active in the organization.
So I would say that, maybe during those advocacy days, that maybe you could put into the right people's mind, Joe Lentil maybe, or in the assembly, or other people that, you might be, or Helene Weinstein in the assembly,
Right.
who deal with law enforcement, put the bug in their head that maybe they should approve. I don't think it has to
What,
be
more
a home
social
rule.
services, you're
No,
saying?
more, another county judge.
Generally, those initiatives, as this one did, come from the Office of Court Administration directly to the legislature. So they don't come from the legislators per se, they come from OCA. So this was something that OCA believed was important, and I'm not sure what.
And
they
I'm
think
sure
it
the
was.
public doesn't realize that.
I don't understand as a public person, why are you saying that the state is telling how to have a county judge?
The state has to
I'm
sign.
not getting
the state has
the
to,
connection.
The state has to sign off on the number of judges in each county.
They're actually
city.
all state employees,
Yeah.
judges.
Really, that's
The state-
interesting
Office
that
of
they're
Court
not-
Administration is the bureaucracy in the state that employs and supervises, administers judges throughout the
So
state.
you're saying that it's a state option to put another county?
It was entirely a state,
Interesting. I didn't
entirely a
know
state
that.
decision. It did not come from Schenectady itself.
Mm-hmm.
They said, I think they had an omnibus city court bill, and they said, let's create city court judgeships, and they named a lot of cities that they put them in.
So the family court judge could
That
really.
that is
ease-
clearly, that does respond to local need. I know a family court has a persuasive argument based on their caseload that they need another judge.
And what would be your advice to family court to ease your burden in the DA's office? I mean, can they do things to mitigate domestic violence and mitigate other crimes that would be within not children and dealing with adults and
Well, they certainly do have a big role and overlapping jurisdiction on family offenses. So victims of family offense, somebody who's been subjected to domestic violence, has an option to go to family court to seek some sort of outcome there, or to criminal court, or to both. And we do have an integrated domestic violence court where a judge sits and hears cases where the litigants are involved in family court and criminal court, and maybe Supreme Court if there's a divorce pending. So if you have all of these, the idea is put those cases in one forum so that the litigants don't have to go to multiple courts, and that's the idea. Tends with the criminal courts, they tend to take the less important, smaller cases, so they're just kind of taking them out of city court and putting them into a county court. So
What's your What's your staff like in the DA's
I have
office?
22 assistant DAs, budgeted for 23, but I have 22. And two of them are part-time, but the rest are employed within the office in various bureaus that we have.
Now, I've seen you on TV where you have prosecuted cases in court.
I do. I have tried cases throughout my tenure. I tried the Stephen Rossi case a few years ago. Actually, the school district employee who was in
yes.
charge of the buildings
Yeah,
and grounds
yeah.
department and was
Dealt with Rensselaer
busy
County
going
and
all
they-
around.
blowing things up.
Vandalizing and setting bombs, in the homes or cars of people that he perceived to be his enemies. I tried a murder case a couple years ago. I was preparing to try a murder case this April. A guy named Michael Briggs, who was accused of murdering a retired nun who was 82 years old that lived in her home, and he was shoveling snow, and she was kind to him and offered him money, and he entered her home, and he was trying to take something from her, and she discovered him doing that, and he ended up strangling her and stabbing her. It was a horrible crime. He pled guilty in April, and then he brought a motion to withdraw his plea, which was denied by Judge Drago, and we're on this Friday for sentencing in that case, finally.
For sentencing,
Which
so
cases do you
First-
take? The harder ones, the bigger ones? I mean, which one?
Well,
do
I
you
tend to
pick and
take
choose?
cases that interest me or that have something, or I have involvement in. I've been involved in the investigation very closely, like in the Rossi case. So I knew it the best. So I was the most logical person to try it. I don't think it's necessary for DAs to be trial attorneys. I think it helps. I think it helps to alleviate some of the workload. I think it helps if the boss is trying cases. But, there aren't a lot of, the other issue is that when you do try a case, it takes you away from doing anything else. And there's a lot of management when you have an office getting to be the size of mine. I think amongst my regional colleagues, I don't think many of them do try cases, except in the small offices. Of course, they have to. Jed Conboy, for instance, in Montgomery County, Kate Hogan in Warren County. Kate
Yes.
tries cases.
well,
But the larger the office, the harder that is because you have a lot of administrative
Management,
responsibility.
yeah.
well, Saul Greenberg never tried
No.
a case for the 25 years that he was in office. He plea bargained a lot, and-
Talk about
do-
plea
wait,
bargains,
but
yeah,
do you,
talk about
yeah,
plea
do you plea
bargain.
bargain a lot of cases, or do you try to resist the plea bargaining?
Well, the criminal justice system couldn't function without plea bargaining. If you think about it, if you have we have one county court judge, we have two, so we have a visiting one. So let's say you had two judges, and you may do 500 felonies a year between the two of them. If you tried every case, an average, 1 to 2 weeks per, and then give the judge a few vacation weeks, how many cases could you try in a year? 75, 80? How are you going to get rid of the 500? So the idea is, yes, plea bargaining fulfills a necessary function in the criminal justice system, but you have to do it intelligently and,
Right.
and with good judgment. It's when you you take a case that is good and you have an outcome which doesn't seem right to the public because there's a disparity between the sentence and the crime, or there is inconsistency amongst various people
Yeah.
that are charged with different crimes.
What happened to
That's when you have a problem with plea bargaining.
What happened to the woman who killed her 8 children?
Mary Beth Tinning?
Yeah, over years.
Mary Beth Tinning was one of the 2 people convicted of murder before I became DA. John Persh convicted her of murder in the late 80s.
Yeah.
She was given a sentence of 20 to life. She has been before the parole board 3 times, and they've denied her parole ever since.
So she won't get out. in her
Well, she
life.
hasn't yet.
No,
They're trying to argue, that she should be paroled, and then really it's up to the parole board.
But it's something that you would advocate.
I have weighed in on that
And-
and opposed her parole, saying that I believe her to be a danger. Now, she was a danger to her own babies, but I believe that she had a certain condition or demonstrated willingness to prey on weak people, and I would be worried about being around the elderly. I'd be worried about her husband, who she actually tried to kill too. So
John Tinney? Forgot his name.
no, that's not his name.
Okay.
I don't remember now.
Never
but,
mind.
but I know there was
Okay.
those allegations surfaced
Yeah.
during the investigation and the trial.
So that's.
And I know, and she was convicted of killing one of her children, although she was believed to have killed all of them.
What did you do before you were DA? Were you a trial attorney? Or?
I was an assistant DA, pretty much directly out of law school
Oh,
from
okay.
79 to 82 in Schenectady County. Then I was in private practice at the Higgins, Roberts, Barrel and Cohen firm for 8 years. I was a partner, and I became a partner in the firm. And I did litigation. I did civil and some criminal defense, but mostly civil litigation.
White collar?
We did a lot of work for GE,
Uh-huh.
Niskuna Schools, Union College. But we also did some plaintiffs' work, so I did some personal injury work on behalf. We didn't represent insurance companies, so I had a wide variety of civil litigation.
So
Mostly.
do you like trying cases?
Yes.
Do you like to get in there
Yes,
and do the
I mean
cases?
I was always
More than the administrative part of your job, which is
Yes.
necessary, but.
Yes, I mean I think most. I mean I like the community outreach part of my job. I'm involved in a lot of projects and task forces and that kind of thing to deal with and I very much enjoy the policy part of the job. When I was active, well, I am active, but when I was president of the DA's Association particularly, and I have to say I enjoy the courtroom. I've always enjoyed the courtroom. Although as you get older, it becomes more difficult.
You know what, in all the years, I think if you look at a picture from you 25 years ago to today, it really hasn't changed that much.
Well,
You
I
have-
could tell you the differences. I could show you the receding hair.
Maybe internally, but.
My wife told me that when President Obama came to GE in Schenectady, and I was on a rope line, I managed to shake his hand. She said, "There's my husband." She could tell from my bald spot.
Oh, that's not nice. But I wanted to, but I could just say, you don't have the bags under your eyes, you don't have, you still look youthful, and you're just, you don't have the chin like I have, more chins here, so I'm just
it's
saying that there's an aging process. You seem to be, in good shape, and, are you a people,
Reasonably.
are you a people person, do you feel?
A people person?
Yeah.
I can be. I think my natural tendency is to be a little introverted, but when I force myself to engage, I really enjoy it.
Okay.
It's interesting. I had someone I knew this when I was in Connecticut was actually head of the ACLU in their chapter. And it was funny because he went from a lawyer to be a DA, and we asked him that. He says, well, again, the DA, the perception, and that's what I'm saying in you also, that it's not just rough and tough, I'll lock him up and hanging guy, lock him up forever, but it's trying to prevent crime, get rid of crime, if a person needs jail. So I asked him that. He says, well, I do, that I feel that maybe you can say this as a liberal, that I'm doing a good job there because I can choose to prosecute if some things are not.
That's absolutely right. And, we have obligations to those that are accused of crimes to make sure that they, in fact, are guilty. And if we have reservations about their guilt, then it's incumbent upon us to do something about that. As it is also incumbent upon us ethically to share any evidence or information that we have that tends to show that a defendant may not be guilty of a crime that's charged, share that with the defense. So those ethical obligations we take very seriously, and no DA would ever want to think that they've put somebody in prison who is an innocent man. That would weigh heavily on any of us. But at the same time, there are people that we need to be protected from, and like this guy that I just talked to you about that I was going to try, Briggs, there's no doubt in my mind about his guilt, and he did plead guilty, admitting it, and what he did was a horrible, horrible crime, and he was on parole, having absconded from his parole in Long Island for a 10-year sentence, or he did 10 years in state prison for a burglary, two burglaries, one of which featured taking control of a 13-year-old boy in the house and violently sodomizing him.
No.
So this was a horrible human being.
So let me ask you, you mentioned about wrongfully convicting people. I just Googled your name and I came up with this, but but all the things that I read about you have been positive. But
That's
but the
good.
negative is there's a blog spot, no more Robert Carney, .blogspot.com. Do you know about this?
I don't really pay attention to the
You don't
blog.
pay attention to these things, these blog spots?
Yeah.
There's one person out who says that, you should stop wrongfully convicting drug offenders. And that was the conclusion, a long misspelled,
Yeah,
rant.
was
and-
there an example
Yeah, there's a long, I can give this to you
of,
later.
of people wrongfully convicted? When I was president of the
Apparently, so I'm
DAs,
just,
when I was president of the DAs Association, I accompanied several DAs, and we testified before a committee of the state senate, and there were protesters lining the hallways. We went that day, and we got to our tables, and there was a list of cases, and it was titled something like people wrongfully convicted in Schenectady of drug, and there were 10 cases, and they had a synopsis of each case. Well, we went back and researched each of those cases, and not one of them was accurately reported.
Okay.
Reported somebody, this guy has no criminal history, and the guy had a 10-page criminal history. This guy, had had possession of a little bit of crack cocaine, and that's all. And they're neglecting to talk about the safe with all the weapons and the drugs that he also had during
Drives
the
you nuts,
so,
doesn't it?
so yes, it was totally misrepresented. Now,
that
Well, you
really,
always, like again, I have a little perspective because I go to prison, so you get a lot of sour grapes, Mark.
yeah, I know.
Like, oh, who me? I didn't do anything. I'm innocent, like you say, even though.
Well, that's
you know,
why I
they're
didn't want to
doing-
blow this out of proportion. I just wanted
Yeah.
to sort of bring it up because
You
if you
know.
didn't know that it was out there,
You go
you
to
should
prison,
know-
everybody's
you should
innocent.
know.
If
and
you'd
you
ask
sh-
them, they're
you know.
innocent.
But is there something that you wanted to bring up on the show, a topic or an issue that we didn't approach yet, or?
Well, we've talked about the fact that we're having a couple of really good years, and a lot of that has to do with the guest that I just saw the taping of, which is Chief Kilcullen.
Yeah.
The Schenectady Police Department has gone through its problems, but I think that they are really smart about the way they approach crime now. Some of the things I know he talked about, DDAX, it's called, the marrying of traffic accident data and what we're doing now is with gun possession or use, so that you maximize your patrol activity in those areas is another thing that I think is very smart about reducing crime, and we like to see.
Yeah, but I think that, like your social work problems are also, it's just not a matter of police and, incarcerating them, but just helping them to straighten up. I guess that's the kind of work I'm doing. I mean, that, just I'd like to see, I do it through Judaism, through religion, which, does help also to make them a better citizen and keep them out of jail. And that would be almost like maybe, the best job you could do is if there'd be no crime,
Sure.
to get out of there and, that would be the real success. I don't know if it's going to happen so fast, but.
Yeah, we have a
just-
reentry task force, which I'm co-chair of. We have used to be called Law, Order, and Justice, now the CCJ. It's a not-for-profit in our community that coordinates the reentry program, and we got state funding to try to get people who are now returned to the community. These people are coming back anyway, so it's incumbent upon us to do whatever we can to provide them services so they don't commit crimes and reoffend. So we try to deal with their issues. Some of them have substantial issues. They could have mental health as well as addiction problems and housing and education and employment. Employment is huge. Employment and family dynamics, people that have loved ones, a structure to try to keep them on the straight and narrow. Those are the people that do the worst, or the best rather. And if people don't have those things in their lives, it's hardest.
That's good.
Yeah, is there something else you want to bring up that you'd like to have to mention or talk about? 'Cause
Well, one thing
I
that
could
we've-
go on forever, but
Yeah.
I wanted to give you the floor.
One thing
so-
that we've pioneered in Schenectady is our public surveillance camera system.
Oh, yeah?
We have 138 cameras throughout the city of Schenectady in high crime areas, which has also had
I didn't know that.
in downtown area, And this grew out of a neighborhood association. The Hamilton Hill Neighborhood Association first came with us, to us with the idea, can
Do you
we
have
do
signage around the neighborhood
We
that
don't
says?
have, downtown there's some signs, but it's not really, but they are, they're easy to see. They're on light pole, but they have been very helpful in providing leads to solve crimes, to provide evidence in courts. And we've captured a couple homicides on it. The last 4 arson cases were all solved, not largely, but video evidence featured in those cases. So the other thing that we did, on the subject of video, we were the first county in the state that equipped all of our police investigators with cameras, recording systems to record custodial interrogations, and then decided to record all felony interviews from beginning to end. And this was an initiative that we were able to get funding from the State Bar Association and from DCJS. A lot of places have it now, but we were the first. I think in '86 we were going.
I'm going to ask the sheriff this when he comes on the show, but I just want to, is there video visitation in the county jail? Albany County has it.
I don't think they do.
No, okay.
But this system.
Because you're talking about video, and thinking video visitation.
There isn't a case we have where we don't have video evidence now. Talk about the way we do our job has changed.
Yeah, but people who can't get to the county jail, or people who can't visit.
I don't think they have remote Skyping or that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't think they have it yet.
Okay.
But this system protects the accused, make sure their rights are enforced, and it protects police from allegations of that they're lying.
I think every automobile should have a dashboard cam.
Well, most of our police cars.
No, I think every
over
automobile.
here.
I think we should have them also. But anyhow, go ahead, Rob.
Listen, Bob, you're doing an excellent job. It's just, you've been so many years, and the only reason why you're that because you're doing an excellent job. You're keeping the job. We want you to continue with your good work, Mark. Says you're looking healthy, so you keep your good health, and that's important. You need your health before anything else, and keep up the good work.
Best of success, yes.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Mark.